Fall is in full swing, and it's the perfect time to refresh your wardrobe with pieces that feel as good as they look. Luckily, Quince makes it easy to look polished, stay warm, and save big without compromising on quality. To know me is to know I love a cashmere sweater. Let me tell you, the one thing that you need for the fall is a oatmeal cashmere sweater, and nowhere better than Quince because you're going to save so much money. Think 100% Mongolian cashmere from $50. Then add to that washable silk tops and skirts and perfectly tailored denim, and all at prices that feel too good to be true. I got to tell you, I think I'm going to get a wool coat. They look designer level, but cost a fraction of the price. The greatest thing about Quince is they partner directly with ethical top-tier factories, so they cut out the middleman. And by doing so, they can deliver luxury, quality pieces at half of the price of similar brands. It's the kind of wardrobe upgrade that feels smart, stylish, and effortless. So, this is what I want you to do. Keep it classic and cozy this fall with long-lasting staples from Quince. Go to quince.com/Kate Casey for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/Kate Casey to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Kate Casey.
At Maurice's, we're all about great jeans. You know, the ones that fit you just right. The ones that go from work days to weekends and everywhere in between. The ones that simply make you feel good. Because you don't just wear jeans, you live in them. With 25 sizes, 5 lengths, and 6 denim brands, you've got options. And fit experts in every store to make jean shopping easier. Find great jeans starting at $29.90 in stores and at Maurice's.com.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey, and welcome back for this Saturday series episode. And I've got a great one for you today. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to solve a mystery that has haunted a family for decades? Or how science can restore a name to someone who's vanished, leaving only silence behind? Have you ever been curious about how investigators use genetic genealogy, family trees built from DNA, to crack open cases long considered unsolvable? Have you ever imagined whether you could do this work yourself? Well, today's episode is about exactly that. My guest is Katie Thomas, co-founder of Moxxy Forensic Investigations, a nonprofit group of investigative genetic genealogists who volunteer their time and expertise to bring closure to cold cases. Working hand in hand with forensic labs and law enforcement, Katie and her team specialize in giving the unidentified their names back and giving families long-awaited answers. Recently, she and Moxxy helped solve one of Houston's most enduring mysteries. Back in 1992, skeletal remains of a young woman were discovered in a wooded lot in North Houston. For over 30 years, she was only known as Jane Doe, but through painstaking genealogical research and modern DNA analysis, Moxxy identified her as Joanne Zamora, born in 1963, a vibrant young mother whose daughter was just 2 years old when she disappeared. For Joanne's family, the identification ended decades of uncertainty, but it also reopened the toughest question of all: who killed her? Houston police now consider her death a homicide and are asking for tips to finally bring justice. Moxxy also recently unmasked the true identity of a man who lived a double life for decades. Known to neighbors in Indiana as Bill Lee Hull, he died in 2012 with no past anyone could verify. No fingerprints, no real records, just stories. But DNA told a different truth. He was Albert Edwin Pinky Rhodes, a one-time Denver outlaw tied to the shotgun bandits of the 1950s. He had spent much of his adult life hiding behind an alias, and it wasn't until 2023 that genealogists uncovered who he really was. It's a case that shows just how far people can go to erase themselves, and how even then, science can still find them. Katie Thomas has been at the center of both of these investigations, and today she's here to share just how she came into this work, what it feels like to finally close the gap between a name and a story, and why investigative genetic genealogy is changing how we solve crimes. Here is my interview with Katie Thomas. Katie, it is a pleasure to meet you. I'm fascinated by your job, so welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So first, you got to tell me, when you were a kid, were you the kind of person that was inquisitive? Were you curious? Were you a dog without a bone?
Absolutely, all the time. Wanted to inspect, investigate everything I could.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
even then, so like when you get into college and your girlfriends are going on dates and that, were you just kind of always looking for what may be around the corner, second guessing things?
Yes, I mean, always a very hard worker, always wanted to do more. I read lots of true crime novels, and so that spent a lot of my time in college. And my favorite class was my forensics class. So it's always been in my life.
And would it be a surprise to your family that this would be the path that you would end up taking in your career?
Absolutely not. They knew that I wanted to be a detective since I was a little girl. My family's law enforcement. So that was the goal. And when I want to say age 10 to 12, like my book of choice was the Texas death row inmates, like about their crimes. And so this is no surprise to my family.
So did you grow up in a house where dinner conversation would end up being your parents' job and what they did at work and then exploring things that were in the news?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part. So it's also a matter of, my parents were divorced. And so my father was law enforcement. My mother was in the medical field. So I was always around that. And so whether we were having dinner plate conversations or I was like tagging along with them to events or, ride along type stuff with both of them, it was always a topic of conversation, just this kind of life, this kind of world.
What was your first job out of college?
I was a social worker. In Oklahoma for about 10 years, doing investigatory work. I wanted to study forensic psychology and my bachelor's in psychology. And I got married. And so one of us had to work while the other one started graduate school. And so I chose to work when my husband did graduate school. And I loved it. I love social work, but I love the investigation part of it.
What do you think first drew you into the investigative social work? What aspect of it did you find enticing? And then how did that experience shape the way that you approached forensic genealogy?
So it's interesting. So when I was in college, I actually worked like in childcare programs. Because it was, true crime. And then I love children. So I worked through my way through college and I worked in childcare programs. So when it became time to get a job after college, to be able to let him go to graduate school, I started working with childcare licensing in Oklahoma, which is inspecting daycares. So investigating child abuse complaints in daycares, that kind of a thing. That's kind of just where I went with it. Well, let me kind of go back. So I did the investigative social work for 10 years, and I really, truly loved it. I loved that aspect of it. But then we moved. We relocated states, and I became a stay-at-home mom. I've got several children, so I stayed home with them. And there's that bug just kind of itching there that like, I have to do something. I have to investigate. I have to work with missing and unidentified persons. That was my goal as a child, was to be a detective, and I always wanted to investigate cold cases. And so, once I got married and had kids, that dream became a little bit more difficult because I can't, you have to work your way up as a detective. So I can't be a beat cop and have my kiddos and taking care of them. It just didn't really work for me anymore. So investigative social work kind of scratched that itch for a little bit, but it still wasn't in the true crime field and working on those kind of cases. So once I became a stay-at-home mom, I very quickly started volunteering for the Doe Network, which is a volunteer database online where people match missing with unidentified persons, just strictly through research. So I was able to kind of do that while taking care of my kiddos at home. And I was a researcher for several states for that. I became an area director for Texas and Louisiana. And then I am now also a regional program manager for the entire Northeast. So I was able to kind of do that. And I've always been a traditional genealogist since I was a teenager. I love genealogy. I love history. I love learning about our families and our ancestors and where we come from. So I had that always as a hobby. And then this field exploded. And so it was able to bring everything together.
Did the way you looked at cases change once you became a mother?
It did. I mean, I think all of us are kind of jaded by what we see in the, in the news and in, media and on TV and movies. And I love scary movies. And so, you're jaded, but then when you become a mother, It's much more like, okay, the child crimes are very, very difficult. We work some baby cases, and those they're tremendously hard. And then there's also we work a lot of like Jane Doe cases where these are women who, their children have been looking for them for years and they're not there and they're a Jane Doe somewhere. And so that's a whole other piece of it. Like, I would never want to disappear one day and my children to think that I purposefully left them. And that wasn't the case. So there's all these little pieces to this. So absolutely it changed once I became a mom.
So for people who are kind of new to understanding this field, how would you explain the role of an investigative genetic genealogist in solving cold cases?
Okay, so what we do is we are genealogists. We build back family trees. And so in this line, what we are utilizing is traditional genealogical methods, so records like census records and obituaries and death records to build back family trees, but we're using DNA matches. That's what pulls in the genetic component of this. So we are identifying Jane and John Doe's unidentified human remains and perpetrators of violent crimes through this method. So we're able to get DNA matches to our unidentified person, and then we build out family trees for their DNA matches to eventually identify them.
How does the collaboration between genealogists, law enforcement, and forensic labs look like in practice?
So the way our method works is that we are reaching out on cases. We are searching online for cases that look like they may have DNA available. We utilize a database called the National Missing and Unidentified Person System. It's called NamUs. And they have thousands of cases of both unidentified human remains and missing persons. We'll search databases and we'll look for Jane and John Does that oftentimes that speak to us individually, those of us who reach out on cases, and we'll contact the agency. We ourselves, as the genealogists, we never touch the sample. So we talk to the agency, we are given the case. And when I say that, it means we have like an agreement in place with the agency, a contract. And then we have a laboratory coordinator who coordinates with that agency and the appropriate lab to get the sample sent from the agency to the lab. And then the lab that we partner with, they do all of their magic. And then they give us a DNA profile, a data file that we upload to the databases that we can use for our work. So we are never in contact with the actual DNA sample itself.
And how long could this process take? And I'm assuming it's different for each case, but like an average amount of time.
So you're right. It is different for each case. And that number kind of depends upon if we're fundraising. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and a lot of agencies don't have funding for cold cases. So we will take on that extra role of fundraising for the case. And so we have some cases that we have been fundraising for now for 16 months, 17 months that have only raised a few $100s. So those cases are taking a lot longer. But if let's say we have the money, we can move into that lab process. The lab process takes a couple of months, so hopefully much less than that. So we can typically have that data file to us within 3 to 6 months once we get that case. And then for our genealogists to start their work, it's all a matter of the DNA matches. So we do a lot of underrepresented populations in our databases. So we do a lot of Latin American cases, a lot of African American cases. And unfortunately, the data pool that we can pull from those databases is very minimal. So when we start our work to build out family trees, we're starting with like 5th, 6th, 7th cousins as the closest matches. And I know most of us do not know who our 5th, 6th, 7th cousins are because that's so distant. So we're building out so many distant matches that it can take months to, figure out who this person is. There's some that we've been working on for 2 years now that their matches are just so distant. It's just taking us a really long time. But there are cases that we have gotten that we have solved in 30 minutes.
Wow.
Always, like, you never know until the moment we upload that data profile. You never know. It all depends on who has taken one of those consumer DNA tests like Ancestry and 23andMe, who has then taken that DNA data from those consumer databases and uploaded them into the databases that we can use. And sometimes we get lucky and a child of our unidentified person, a parent, somebody like that has uploaded and we got it right there.
Well, then do you face some challenges because certain communities have not done that? So it takes a longer period of time.
It takes a longer period of time. So we do a lot of individuals who have crossed the border in Pima County, Arizona. And so we have individuals who come from Guatemala, El Salvador. And a lot of people, from El Salvador and Guatemala haven't uploaded their DNA to our databases. So, understandably. And so it's very, very difficult, very challenging work.
Outside of that, are there other challenges that you face with DNA data, genealogical records, family trees?
Genealogical records, yes. If we get back to certain countries that may not have records available that we're able to look at, that gives us a roadblock. If we are working on African-American families that may hit that slave wall where the records kind of stop right there in the 1800s, that proves a challenge. So, and we've had challenges even recently with one of our cases where the names were so common that we were building back. We were looking at, like, for example, John Smith. Well, There's tons of John Smiths, and we're looking at, we have an area, but there's 300 John Smiths in that one area. So which one is our right person? So there's a lot of challenges once you get to the genealogy. It's all luck of the draw.
I also, even exploring my own genealogy, I'm so scared that I went down the wrong path. Like, I got a name wrong, I got a birth date wrong, and it sets off the whole tree.
Yeah.
Do you ever experience that as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and for us as genealogists, we want to find records to prove everything that we're doing. So we're not going to look at someone else's tree and say, oh, well, that's the right path. We want to find, where is the death record? Where is the birth record? Where is the census record? The land records, whatever it is, to be able to prove our next step. But the other issue that comes into play, which is coming out a lot in these consumer data tests or DNA tests, is that there are non-paternity events. That means that people's father is not who they believe it to be. Ooh. So where it may be the father on record, on a birth record, it genetically is not their father. So then we come into that a lot into play, that maybe the records are there, but it's just not matching with the DNA. So that's a whole other challenge that we have to face.
This show is sponsored by Liquid IV. Like you, I'm having a tough time adjusting from endless summer to back to reality energy needed for the fall. I feel like I've moved from easy breezy to buckle up the jetpack. So how do I switch gears and level up my energy without burning out? Well, it's Liquid IV. Not only do I feel a boost of hydration with Liquid IV, but so do my kids. They keep the drink packs in their sports bags, and it's so easy and convenient. They just tear, pour, and enjoy, and so will you. Powered by Live Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. Scientifically formulated to support physical energy, hydration, focus, mood, and social stamina. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. My favorite flavor is sugar-free energy blackberry lemonade, and I know you're going to love it too. So ditch the glitch with 0 sugar and 0 crash from Liquid IV. Tear, pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first order with code Kate Casey at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with code Kate Casey at liquidiv.com. The weather's cooling down and the days are getting shorter, which makes me want to make my space even cozier. And Wayfair is the place to go. And I'm going to tell you the greatest purchase we made from Wayfair, a trampoline for our backyard. Hayes is doing back handsprings at every chance, and the kids can burn off energy before tackling homework. As my trusted destination for all things home, Wayfair's got everything that you need to cozify your space this fall, from comfy chairs to warm bedding and autumn decor. And don't you think that your living room needs updated pillows and throw blankets? And what about some new furniture so you can invite the new neighbors over for a dinner party? And for those of you who work at home, you probably need some new lighting or maybe a new rug. My recommendation, a gorgeous framed photo for the wall. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or budget. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your home goals with room ideas and curated collections. And it's free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff. No more huge delivery fees for furniture. And no need to shop at multiple stores. Furniture, decor, appliances, cookware, all in one place. So cozify your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates. From comfy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor, find it all for way less at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. How do you balance some of these sensitivity issues with victims' families?
Very carefully. We do not like to reach out to people in the public on a case unless it's vitally necessary. And in that situation, we're always talking with the agency to make sure, like, hey, we're kind of at a point here. We may have to talk to someone in the public. But it is our goal we don't want to disturb anybody. So we try not to do that unless we really do have to.
So you've had some notable cases. You've worked on several high-profile cases. Can you tell me the story of Joanne, the identification, and what made that case particularly meaningful for you?
Yes. So like I said earlier, I like to look on the National Missing and Unidentified Person System for cases. I live in Texas, so Texas is my heart. And I wanted to find a case, kind of close to home. So when I'm looking at this database, I'm looking for cases that don't have a lot of information, that don't really have a picture of what the person looked like in life, that don't have very much information about anything about the person, because I kind of feel like those are easy to be overlooked. So this particular Jane Doe, there is minimal information. She was found in 1992. No picture of what she looked like. She was age 20 to 30, just very generic descriptors of what she looked like. And no, she was found in the woods by a passerby in the Houston area, and that was really it. So I reached out on this case to the agency, to the Harris County Institute of Forensic Science, and asked if they would allow us the opportunity to try to identify her. And so they said yes. We had a partnership in place. And so we started that fundraise process, which, like I said, could take forever. And we got a few donations kind of trickle in here and there. And then we got a phone call from Derek Lavasser of Criminal Coffee Company, but he's also was a Big Brother winner. Yeah, from New York. And I'm not sure what season he won, but he has this criminal coffee company where he sells coffee, and some of the proceeds go towards this kind of work. So he called us and he said, "Hey, I'd like to go ahead and fund this case for you all."
Wow.
It was amazing. Yeah. So we were able to go ahead and get her going really quickly. And all of the lab process went very smooth. So we were able to get her samples sent to Intermountain Forensics in Utah. And they did an incredible job of the lab work, and we were able to start our work. And we started doing her genealogy in December of last year. There were 8 genealogists on the case, and we had a little over a month, which of course includes Christmas. We were able to give the Harris County Institute of Forensic Science a preliminary report with this family as a potential candidate for this Jane Doe. And then we waited, because that's what we do, is we give an agency a candidate saying we believe that your Jane or John Doe could be this individual, or sometimes it's a family, like it could be siblings, any of these individuals. But we gave that, we give that report, and then the agency is responsible for doing that confirmatory testing. So they're going to find a closer relative to what we were working with to make sure that this is the correct identity. And they did their part. And then in July, they let me know that this was her and this was Joanne Zamora. And so her case is very sad. She, this is 1992, September 8th of 1992 is when she was found. And we had the extraordinary opportunity to be able to meet her daughter, who is just an amazing woman and very full of life. And the story that the daughter told us is that, her mother was supposed to come see her and her siblings. She had 5 siblings for Easter in 1992, and her mother didn't come. And the kids thought that, like I said earlier, that she had left, that she had just left them. And unbeknownst to them, she was murdered shortly after that. And then she was found, of course, September 8th, 1992. And so it is a homicide investigation that the Houston Police Department is investigating. And Derek Levasseur, again, he has now offered up a $5,000 reward for information leading to the persons responsible for her homicide.
Wow.
So it's an awful case, but the family has answers, and I think that that's extraordinary for the family to be able to know that their mother didn't leave them. That that's completely out of her control, and she did love them very, very much. A very, very loving mother. So to be able to provide them answers is why we do this.
But also troubling because you're at the vortex of this terrifying moment where they realize, yes, their mother didn't purposely leave them, but that she was also murdered.
That she's gone. Yeah. That she's gone, that she's not there living somewhere, that she is gone. Yeah. It's heartbreaking.
What are some other big cases that you've been involved with or have been adjacent to that have really made a huge impact in the work that you do and in your life?
But probably one of my favorite to kind of talk about is our case of our Bill Lee Hull John Doe, who was found in 2012. This John Doe he called himself Billy Hull. He has a Social Security number, and he was living with his girlfriend she had died 3 years earlier. He was living in the garage apartment of her grandchildren. And they hadn't heard from him in a little while, so they went to check on him, and he was deceased. And this is a man they knew as Billy Hull. He was older, and he died of natural causes, so it wasn't a surprise that he was deceased. But when the coroner came out there to do the death certificate and everything, they realized that his name, Billy Hull, and his Social Security number he had been using matched a living person in the state over. So they were not able to figure out who he actually was at the time. And the grandchildren said, we always knew him as Billy Hull. He had been with their grandmother since 1987. They met in Arizona. And since that time, they've been together. That's 22 years before she dies. They always knew him as Billy Hull. And there were a couple of little things that were off about him. Like he always wore long sleeves. He didn't share much information about himself, but he was very nice, very loving, and they looked at him as their grandfather. But they didn't know how to answer the coroner's questions. And when the coroner looked closer, they found on his left forearm, he had a tattoo, a very almost like a prison tattoo of the name Pinky. Which is this grandkids had never seen that because he had his long sleeves on all the time. So they hadn't seen that. And then the coroner saw that all of his fingerprints were removed by an unknown means.
Yeah. How does someone do that?
I mean, it could be acid. I mean, it could
Holy Lord.
Filed them off. I mean, some people have jobs where their fingerprints start to go away, especially older, later in life. But that didn't really seem to be what happened here. So they were just stuck. They don't know who this man is. So he was buried as a John Doe with the alias of Billy Hull. And that was it. He had an obituary that had his birth date as March 15th of 1932, with parents listed that he had told these grandchildren. And then that was it. So we came along and we got this case, and we had a contract signed, and within 3 weeks, we were doing an exhumation. So sometimes the remains are not above ground. They've been, in this situation, they are buried, so we have to do an exhumation, which, of course, I say we, that's, the royal we. So that's the coroner's involved, the city's involved. They do an actual exhumation. And one of our co-founders, Casey Connolly, got to go to the exhumation and assist with that, which was, a very interesting experience for her. And we were able to send Bill's femur to Intermountain Forensics, again, the same one we used for Joanne Zamora in Utah. And they got a great sample. And we started working. And within, I think this is the case that it took us about 30 minutes to determine his identity. And his identity was Albert Edwin Rhodes. That's he had very close DNA. I told you it's all about the DNA matches and how close they are. And this one we lucked out on, his DNA matches were very close. And so we built out the family tree of these DNA matches. It all lines up perfectly. And there's two brothers. There is Albert Edwin Rhodes, and he had an older brother. And we start looking, we're like, well, it could really be either DNA. It could be either one of these brothers. We now have to look for proof of life for both brothers to see who is there no proof of life for, after 2012. Like, what can we find? So we start looking, and Rhodes, it's spelled very peculiar. It's Roadhs.
Oh.
Okay, so we have that weird spelling. We go to newspapers.com, which is the database where you can search newspaper archives. And we put in Albert Edwin Rhodes, and we're looking on this, this database. And all of a sudden, all these stories start popping up about this Albert Edwin Pinky Rhodes. So there's the tattoo. Pinky Rhodes, who had been a criminal. So he and his brother were members of the Shotgun Bandits, who committed armed robbery in Colorado and Denver in the 50s. And he was put in prison for some time, and he escaped, or he didn't escape. He finished his prison sentence out there, and then he just kind of disappears after that. So about 67, he leaves Colorado, and at the time, we had no record of him from 67 through 87 when he met his girlfriend. So, but it all tied together. That was him. And we have since received more information. And so now he has a criminal record in multiple other states before he comes to Arizona and meets this woman. And clearly she calmed him down a little bit because he didn't do anything else after that. He was a loving grandfather to these kids and didn't put a foot out of line after that. But that's kind of the interest when people like hearing about that one and all the, when you see those newspaper articles and you can get his, we have a picture of him as an older teenager, an arrest picture. And, we're talking about from the 50s. And so we have a lot of details on him. So it's a very interesting story.
Oh, how did he change his identity, his name? Like, how do people do that then? I mean, assuming it's still possible now, but it may have been easier then.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier that he just had the name, the social security number of that guy. He was using his actual birth date. We did determine that birth date he had given those grandkids was his real birth date, but he was using the name and social security number, and he wasn't able to get benefits because he could not provide a birth certificate. And but he refused to go and get a birth certificate, so he just didn't have benefits. So it's definitely possible. But yeah, today it's much harder to do that kind of stuff.
Well, I just think of other cases I've done. It's like a family annihilation case where the father just kind of disappears and then shows up decades later and he's taken on a new identity. Like, how did people do that? And you just find someone who, like a child that's died or someone that just died. And don't people have to make some notification if a loved one has died? Like, how can they just use someone else's social security number?
Well, I mean, and even in this situation, though, the social security number he was using was for a man who was alive. So so he just saw that somewhere and just took it and started using it and wasn't questioned until the moment they do that death certificate. So he got away with it for, 20 years of doing that. But I guess if he didn't apply for, or he didn't get approved for benefits, he didn't have either, he wasn't working. So he had no other reason to, have this social used for anything. He was able to get away with it.
And I wonder, did his wife have any idea?
We don't believe so. I mean, she, of course, died 3 years before he did. So we don't believe so. I think at one point she had questioned, well, why don't you get your birth certificate? And
or take your shirt off or have fingerprints.
Exactly. And I don't know, you would think she would have no fingerprints, but who knows?
I know. I think sometimes people have an inkling, but they choose to look the other way.
Yeah. Exactly. You just kind of know. And he really, truly, I mean, his offenses were, robbery, his burglary. That was his thing. And so, once he met her, I mean, he did truly live a pretty quiet life. So he seems to be like he was a pretty good man. And I think he kind of just had a hard life growing up. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the default is, he had to get by. And that was how, unfortunately, he chose to get by for all those years. And then once he met her, he kind of had a home, a place of belonging, and he didn't see the need to continue his ventures any longer.
Fall is here, and it's the perfect time for grilling. From tailgating to cozy family dinners, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience right to your door. As America's original butcher since 1917, they offer USDA-certified tender steaks hand-cut by master butchers in the heartland. Enjoy juicy burgers, convenient comfort meals, and game day favorites like chicken wings and deli-style franks. Their grass-fed, grain-finished beef delivers exceptional marbling and flavor that professional chefs trust worldwide. Plus, every bite is backed by their 100% satisfaction guarantee. Get fired up for fall grilling with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Red Hot Sale event, and for an extra $35 off, use promo code EATSTEAK at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code EATSTEAK at checkout. See site for details.
Church's Smokehouse Chicken is back, and the block already knows what's up. The new Smokehouse Rub hits every piece of that juicy half chicken with bold, smoky flavor that goes straight to the bone. Nobody else does it like Church's. Our recipe served up just for you. Get it in original or bring the heat with the spicy rub. Dial it up Texas style with a honey butter biscuit and a spicy jalapeno pepper on the side. The new dry rub has everybody talking. Lose yourself in the flavor of Smokehouse Chicken, starting at $5.99. Order online or in store, only at Church's. Price and participation may vary, tax extra, U.S. only.
Well, how do you think that this field is evolving, especially with emerging technology?
I mean, it is, this field, it's been going on for quite a while, but it really came to the forefront with the public's view with the arrest of the Golden State Killer in California, which, he was identified through investigative genetic genealogy. So that really got it, out there. And then along comes the Genetic Detective with C.C. Moore show, the TV about this field. So we have that kind of emerging. And then just over the summer, the Naming the Dead show was released on Hulu, Disney Hulu. And so that really brings it up. So I think it's getting out to the public. We're seeing, at least I am seeing articles almost every day of someone being identified through what we're doing. It's a matter of gaining public trust that, we're doing this to bring answers to families, or if we're identifying perpetrators to get violent, it's only in cases of violent perpetrators to get them off the streets. To make our country safer. So that is the goal here. So I think the more the public sees the good that comes from this field, and the more trust that will be there, and then the more understanding too that just because your DNA is in Ancestry, 23andMe, MyHeritage, we cannot use your DNA in those databases. So I know there's a lot of people who don't understand that process, and they want to help. They see the true crime shows, they see the solves happening, and they want to help. And they think just because they have done one of these consumer tests, they're golden, that their DNA can be utilized for this purpose. And that's simply not the case. The more that people understand that, the more they put their DNA in the databases that we are allowed to use, and the quicker we're going to be able to solve these cases.
What's your advice to somebody who would love to get into this field? And I'm asking that because I think that we're going to find there are a lot of women in particular that are moving into like a second chapter of their careers.
Yes.
And this seems like so many women I know, this is so up their alley. So if someone wants to kind of get into this field, what should they know?
So there's a few things. Number one is that this is not a high-paying field, unfortunately. So the majority of people who do what we do are volunteers. So, but if this is a passion, if this is something that people have a true interest in, they want to give to this, the first thing is you have to understand genealogy. You have to know how to look at genealogical records. You have to understand that. So my first recommendation is to build back your own family tree. See if you can overcome any challenges, any brick walls in your family tree, and understand genealogy first. And then you have to understand the genetic piece of it. You have to understand how chromosomes work, how, DNA matches, how the measures of DNA shared work. So my next recommendation is always to people see if you can't help people figure out who their birth parents are. If there are people who are adopted, they're going to be able to be figured out through DNA. So help someone figure that out. And then once you really understand that component, then you pull in the investigative piece, which is where we look at cases like what we do. So there are several organizations do what we do that have volunteer positions. We are one of them. We don't have volunteer positions every day. We open them up once or twice, maybe a year, depending on how many cases we have and how many current team members we have. But there's other organizations too that accept volunteers. So once, you've kind of worked up those levels, then looking for a volunteer position like that. If you are younger, wanting to get into this field, there are incredible educational programs at Ramapo College in New Jersey and the University of New Haven. So those are both there for actual college programs. And if you are already in a college and you want to learn more about this field, as far as I know, we have the only student internship program right now in the United States. So we offer student internships with colleges that we partner with to allow college students, both undergraduate and graduate, to be able to intern with us to understand what this field is like and to work on a case with us.
So remarkable. With your extensive background across multiple disciplines, which accomplishment are you most proud of?
Oh, goodness. I mean, if I'm really speaking, it's being a mother. I mean, I will say that first. I am a mother, so I'm very proud of my 3 beautiful children, and so being a mother is my proudest. But if I am looking at my professional life, it is absolutely taking the chance on opening up Moxxy. I did this with 2 other incredible women, Casey Connolly and Olivia McCarter. We began Moxxy in 2022. And, at the time we were, it's a scary idea to start a business and to, especially now, we are a 501c3 nonprofit and this is such a new field and there is so much trust required for what we do. We were like, let's just do this and see what happens. We are in this because we love this work. We have a passion for this work. We're not in this for the money because we don't really make any money. So we're in this to make a difference. And, all 3 of us from different backgrounds have always been drawn to cold cases, to these unidentified individuals. I mean, we're working on cases that, are from the 60s, from the 50s. They're old cases. And so we have a passion for this work. And when we began this, we didn't know what was going to come of this. And now here we are 3 years later. And, we have a team of over 35 individuals from all walks of life. We have, current and former law enforcement, current and former military. We have college professors and researchers and all of these amazing people that have come to us to volunteer with us. And as of today, we've been able to solve over 15 cases.
Wow.
And whereas that may not seem like just a huge number, for us, that's over 15 families who have been looking for answers for years. Mm-hmm. We have one case from 64. So they've been looking for 60 years for that individual. So providing answers to the families who waited for so long, I can look back at that and say, we didn't know what was happening 3 years ago. And here we are today. And we talk to the families and we have these relationships with these families and to feel like we've been able to provide them with answers. And they'll never get closure on what's happened, but they have answers now. And it may not be the answers they had hoped for, but they're no longer wondering what happened to their loved one. So I think that that's probably taking on this risk of doing this. It's very fulfilling what we do. It's very heartbreaking and very sad. And every case that we work, you want there to be a good story, like not a good story isn't a good story to tell, right. But you want the person's life to have been good for them. And unfortunately, when you're looking at a Jane or a John Doe, the circumstances of what happened to them is always tragic. And so, each one of these individuals that we work on become like family to us. Like I said, we've had some cases we've been working on for, at this point, 3 years. On at least 2 of them I have in my head. And we work on them day in and day out. And so we know their family trees. We know all these things about them. And it's very important to us to be able to bring a chapter of their story, closed and to the forefront. And so people know what happened to them and that they were a person and to return their name to them so they can get back to their family and get buried properly and have those answers.
I was also thinking too that each of those 35 members of your team come with their own life experiences, not just their career, their vocation, but also their personal experiences. So there must be such an added value in having so many kinds of people that are part of this.
There is, everyone has this field, like, we've talked about, it is so emerging, and there's constantly new technology happening and new, tools and new databases coming up. And everyone has all of their, they all have their own strengths and their own weaknesses. And we're like a family, and we've kind of come together, and everyone, our whole goal is to uplift each other. And, like I said, we're all doing this as a passion, and so there are so many cases in the world, but in America, you're looking at over 50,000 cases of unidentified human remains and over 200,000 cases of unsolved homicides. Wow. So there's no competition in what we're doing. We are all doing this just for the goal of, restoring answers to families. So, so our team is incredible, and we all work together on this shared mission. And, not everybody works on every case. We split up how we work on cases. But I think it's fulfilling for everyone to be able to just say, we did it. We've identified this person, and now we can get her home.
I'm so impressed with this, and I know that so many people are as well. And the thing that's ringing so true to me right now, or most important to me, is that you guys need some help. So how can everyone who's listening to this help in your advocacy, in your work, and make this possible for so many other cases to have an answer?
So there's several ways. I mean, if we're looking at just help building our databases, if you have done one of those consumer DNA tests, the spit in the tube for Ancestry or the swab for 23andMe, if you go and you download your raw DNA data and then you upload it to GEDmatch, Family Tree DNA, and DNA Justice, it allows your DNA to be utilized for these cases. And if that process is a little bit confusing, we have instructions with pictures on our...
Good.
Yes, so www.moxxyforensics.com. We have a support section, and one of those sections is on how to upload your DNA. So it walks you through that entire process. So that's the first step, is making sure your DNA, if you are comfortable, because your DNA is your own personal property, essentially, that's you. So this is something that you have to be comfortable with, allowing this to happen. But if you are comfortable, that's step number one. Step number two is donations. Like I said, we are a 501c3. There is no funding hardly at all for cold cases. And a lot of these agencies don't have funding available. They have a lot of hot cases, a lot of cases currently happening. So older cases just don't have the money. So like I said, we will fundraise for cases. So you go on our website, same support section, there's a donate section, and it shows all the cases that we are needing funding for. We have several cases that have been on there, like I said, for a year and a half that have trickled in a few $100s, and that's it. And, for this to go through, we have to have several thousand for each case. So donations are huge. The other thing that we do is we do events, virtual events, to be able to put money towards cases. So we sell tickets, and 100% of the proceeds go towards a case. And then for those who aren't able to donate, following us on social media, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Blue Sky. We're on TikTok, but that's a very confusing realm for us. So we're navigating all of that, but we are on all of these things, and we are sharing about our cases. And so, checking those out and even sharing that information on your own social media pages. Oftentimes, if we have cases that we're working on that are very difficult, we will put to the public that, we're looking for people with these surnames, these last names in these specific areas. And the more those posts get shared, the more likelihood it is that people who are in those areas with those surnames will see those posts. Yeah. So sharing is crucial as well. So it's www.moxxyforensics.com. We are Moxxy Forensic Investigations on Facebook and LinkedIn and Blue Sky and Instagram and TikTok. Yeah.
I'm really just so impressed with the work that you do. And I can't imagine how time-consuming this is and how so many of these cases tug on your heart. And I'm speaking on behalf of everyone listening when we say thank you for the work you do.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. It takes a village. And it says, every step of this way, we have these people, we have the public that supports it. We have our incredible labs, and, it's a village to be able to do this.
KKC.
I want to thank my great guest, Katie Thomas, and remind you to make sure that you click subscribe. Please leave a 5-star review. Join the Facebook group, Reality Life with Kate Casey. Make sure that you are subscribed to my What to Watch list at katecasey.substack.com. You can also get bonus episodes by going to Apple Podcast and Patreon at patreon.com/Kate Casey. I just did a great bonus episode. Also, make sure you check out my social media. I'm on Instagram at @KKCCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at @KKC. Check back Monday for an all-new episode.
On Boxing Day 2018, 20-year-old Joy Morgan was last seen at her church, Israel United in Christ, or IUIC.
I just went on my Snapchat and I just see her face plastered everywhere.
This is The Missing Sister, the true story of a woman betrayed by those she trusted most.
IUIC is my family and like the best family that I've ever had.
But IUIC isn't like most churches.
This is a devilish cult.
You know when you get that feeling where I don't want to be here. I want to get out. It's like that feeling of, like, I want to go home now.
I'm Charlie Brinkhurst-Cuff, and after years of investigating Joy's case, I need to know, what really happened to Joy? Binge all episodes of The Missing Sister exclusively and ad-free right now on Wondery Plus. Start your free trial of Wondery Plus on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or in the Wondery app.